Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm working on a face-up commission for a Feeple Soony. This is one of those dolls that I'm simultaneously really excited to work on and also kind of terrified to work on, because like so many other face-ups I've worked on lately, it's really pushing me outside my comfort zone. While I usually start by doing line work for eyelashes and eyebrows, I'm starting this one by airbrushing on some eyeshadow. This is my very first time using an airbrush for elements of a face-up, and even though I'm nervous about how it'll turn out, I really feel that using the airbrush was my best option to build up some really bright pink color early on. This means I'll be working out of my preferred order, but trying new stuff is important, right? After the airbrushing is sealed, I punch up the color using pastels, adding more vivid pinks around the eyes and also a bit of a warm peachy tone. The peachy color also goes into the ears and adds some shading around her face. Most of this was done late at night, so my lighting wasn't great, but it's also really nice to have the ability to work at night like this now. Even though I'm making her eyes and lips pink, I'm using 3 colors for most of it. A pale petal pink, a bold hot pink, and one that's almost a purpley magenta kind of color to add depth. These 3 blend together really well to make that medium pink airbrushing pop. There's nothing quite like the smooth gradient you get with airbrushing. I love that already, and I think I'm going to end up being spoiled doing that for face-ups. After I'm happy with the eye makeup, I seal the doll thoroughly and add some eyelashes using brown gouache paint. I go over them a few times to get the color and shape right. Then it's time to move on to the brows. Symmetry is, as always, a big challenge for me, but the gouache makes things a little easier since I can use water to touch it up, including smoothing out some of the lines that go on too thick or too heavy. Then it's on to adding some black liner to the upper eyelid and a hint of brown into the eyelid crease. It always takes me a few layers to get the eyeliner evened out, so it looks a little rough at first, but it's a bit smoother by the time I'm done. To keep the lips really vivid, I use a hot pink watercolor pencil to add some darker lines and blush on top of them with my medium pink. The brows are done with my favorite medium brown pastel in 2 layers. Building up the color of the lips takes a lot of layering. I add some highlights with a pale pink pencil, and then to keep the upper lip neatly outlined, I use my hot pink watercolor pencil again. By this time, I've built up enough pastel that it pretty well matches the color of the lips. Once the brows and lips are sealed well, I add white to the teeth with gouache paint. Then it's on to what was the hardest part of the whole face-up, adding flowers around her face. I started by outlining where I wanted them with a white watercolor pencil, because it would disappear under the color I use next. I started to use a pink watercolor pencil for these, but I wasn't happy with the intensity that particular color gave me, so I decided to use the same pink gouache as what I used for her eyeshadow. I used some tiny little brushes to add cherry blossoms and loose floating petals around the left side of her face. Then I added a few to the right side to balance it out. Two layers of gouache gave the flowers some good shape and color, but I wanted a little more texture and dimension, so I used my hot pink watercolor pencil again to add a little more form, some shading, and some bold outlines and bright tips. A pale pink pencil worked great for adding highlights. A little brown pencil worked well for the branches to hold the flowers all together. I considered using gouache for this, but I felt like the pencil would be a lot more accurate. Then I used an eggplant purple pencil to add a bit of detail right in the centers of the flowers. Last of all, to give the blossoms a bit more pop and make them look a little more illustrated, I used black and white gouache paints to add some hints of outlines around the petals here and there. Honestly, I think these flowers are the hardest thing I've ever done on a doll, partly because I did them on one single layer from start to finish. Sealing between stages might have been easier, but I didn't want to dull any of the colors with the sealant, and I also needed them to blend well with each other. So the only real solution was doing them in just one go. It was scary because I couldn't afford to make any mistakes, but I think it worked out in the end. To finish the face up, I sealed 3 times and then added gloss to the lips. She's now finished and ready to go home, and fortunately, her owner seems to like her a lot. Even though this face-up was a big challenge, it was also incredibly fun, and it was really neat to experiment with new things. So I'm glad I had the chance to do it. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.